everyone, back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day, and it's all about Eddie Howe. Loads of pressure on Eddie Howe going around social media, loads of pressure on Eddie Howe in the main football media. This kind of thing happens really when you go on a bit of a losing streak and you're not playing like you used to play, you're out of form. You know, we've seen Manchester United have it with Ten Hag. I know we've seen it happen before, managers in the past with the likes of Brendan Rodgers, who did a great job at Liverpool. These things can happen to any football club, and right now it's happening to Newcastle United. Now, I would say the calls for Howe out aren't loud and proud within the Newcastle United fan base, but there's a growing frustration within the fan base about some of the lack of in-game management decisions in terms of the tactics, in terms of the substitutions, and really just, you know, thought I'd jump on and do a little thought of the day as to how I think Eddie can fix this, no pun intended. Well, obviously pun intended, that's what we do, isn't it? So we'll get stuck right into this. This isn't going to be an Eddie Howe slating video, so I'm certainly not going to do that. But I think what we've seen, I mean, if we take it back to Eddie Howe coming into the job, Eddie Howe came into the job, we were rock bottom of the Premier League, or we were 19th. We will look like certs for relegation. What he's done in the time that he's been here has been fantastic. He's taken us to a level way quicker than we thought we'd ever be at, really, in terms of he kept us in the league for one, and then last season obviously we pushed on, finished top four, got to a cup final, and we really thought we were going to kick on even further than that, and maybe things have just levelled out a little bit. But I think one of the biggest problems that both Eddie and the club have had is the overestimation of the quality of the players that got us here. And Eddie seems to have a bit of an issue for this. And I think some people in the media are starting to ask this question, and I think it's a very pertinent question to ask, you know, especially of late, as you've seen, Kieran Trippier form has been awful, terrible. You know, whatever's going on with Kieran, I don't know. You know, you don't know, probably watching this as well. There's loads of speculation and theories, but something's not right with the lad. You know, we've got Tino Livramento who can play right back or left back. Could have easily come in and played games where Kieran has played and made high-profile mistakes. Dan Burns come back from injury. Looks like he's lost a yard of pace, which was hard enough because he wasn't the quickest in the first place. He's now being exposed. I mean, this is recording just off the back of the Forest game where he's been annihilated by Elanga. And I think Stevie Wonder could have seen that was going to be the tactics from Nuno in the lead up to the game. As soon as he saw Burn in the team sheet, he would have told Elanga to pull on him. That's exactly what he did. You're looking at a squad there. You've got these young, quick players in Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall. I mean, Lewis Hall's pace could have kept up with Elanga. And Burn was roasted in the first half. You could see the warning signs were there. Eddie waited till we were down to make that decision. And again, these are questions that we need to ask. You know, so you look at the summer transfer window, taking it back a little bit, and it looks like poor business. It really does. I mean, we signed Sandro Tonali. You know, nobody really knows where he was playing. We should have signed a number 6. That didn't happen. Now, whether that's Eddie's fault, whether that's Ashworth's fault, or whether it's both of them, I don't know what that decision was all about. But we should have signed a defensive midfielder. We didn't. It's cost us in games. You know, if you look at the Liverpool game in particular, a proper number 6 sits in that game and maybe gets you a point or gets you the win, you know, when we're 1-0 up. You look at the City game, we could maybe got a point out of that, you know, and these players are so valuable because they do such a good job for you. And everyone who's anybody in football is talking about why Newcastle should have signed the number 6, and we didn't do that. You know, the whole Tonali thing didn't seem to really make sense. You know, him and Bruno didn't really seem to click, apart from the Villa game. Didn't really seem to click, seem to get in each other's way. I mean, obviously we've had loads of injuries, which hasn't helped. Harvey Barnes, the other big summer transfer that you know, hasn't been fit enough to play. To be fair, and when he has played pre-season and first game of the season, he did really well, goals and assists. And I think maybe there's a bit of bad luck there. And if Harvey Barnes had been fit, maybe he would have, you know, rescued that window a little bit. But outside of Tino Livramento, nobody's really looked like a great acquisition in that window. Lewis Hall, we've seen such sparing game time of, and this goes back to my point about Eddie's, you know, some of Eddie's mistakes, if you want to call it that. But these are things that are putting unnecessary pressure on him, and he's bringing it on himself. You know, Dan Burns got no pace for top-level football anymore. You can clearly see that. Whether the odd injury that he's had maybe in the last 18 months has took that pace away from him. But he is a weakness for our side, and he's leaving us exposed. He's a defensive warrior, throw his head and his feet into anything, but on the deck he has no pace. And the Luton game and the Forest game has showed that massively. And these aren't great sides, but they've got pace. They don't have quality, but they have players with some pace. And Burn has been toasted alive. I mean, to take Tino Livramento out of that side, I don't understand the logic behind that. And then if you go back to some big games as well, Paris Saint-Germain's a great one. 1-0 up in the Parc des Princes. We've parked the bus way too early. Way too early. We've invited loads of pressure on ourselves. But at one point, Alexander Isak is literally on one leg. He can't even move. So it's like you're playing with 10 men, and he's got the young lad on the bench, is it Ben Parkinson on the bench, who he could have brought on just for a pair of legs, who could have given you an outlet, could give you a ball to run to, and bringing on the legs of Matt Ritchie over Lewis Hall, who's completely finished. Ritchie's legs are done as well for this top level football. These are decisions that Howe is making, that's bringing unnecessary pressure on himself, and it's leading to people calling about his position, and I'm not doing that right now. I think Eddie Howe is a good enough coach and a good enough manager to get us out of this situation, but how does he do it? He has to start by making big calls. He's already come out after the game and said he will make the calls that he needs to, and there's not enough credit in the bank for a player just to keep in the side if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. He's got big decisions to make here. He's had that big decision to make with Kieran Trippier, and he's made the wrong one, in my opinion. He's played him when he's not right in the head. Yes, the last couple of games he hasn't made any huge errors to cost us goals, but he just doesn't look right. I mean, he plays Wood on side today. That's not something Kieran Trippier does. He lets Morgan Gibbs-White run away from a lazy leg out. He should have kicked his leg right clean from him and got a yellow card. That's something that Kieran Trippier 4 or 5 months or even 2 months would have done. And he just isn't the same player. Dan Burn, it leaves us exposed with pace. You've got Tino that can play there. Lewis Hall can play there. I'd even rather have Paul Dummett playing there than Dan Burn. At least he's got a bit more movement about him. And these are huge decisions. The relentless insistence in playing Miggy Almiron, who is so one-dimensional. He's like a flamingo. He's got one leg. He cannot use his right foot. And he looks thick on the football pitch now. He really does. He has these little purple spells, does Miggy, and he has 7 goals he scores, and then he fucking disappears for a year and a half. And for us as a football club to think that we didn't need to upgrade in that position, and this guy would have been enough for us to have played Champions League football and progress in that competition and retain a top 4 charge was naive. It really was. And I don't know who's made that decision, whether Eddie was the person who's made that decision. Burn and Almiron have both had new deals, so Eddie Howe must have played some part in that. It's either him being naive, being sentimental, or just, really inexperienced as a top-level manager. And he is a young manager, and he needs to learn as he's going. And I think these are huge mistakes that I really hope don't come back to haunt Eddie. I think now is the time for Eddie to have a little bit of a moment of self-assessment. He's a very, very clued-up individual, very articulate, very methodical. He looks at performances in detail. He has to look at his own now. He's leaving games too late to make changes. He's picking players from the start who have got weaknesses that oppositions can exploit. And you shouldn't be picking players on reputation over reliability. And at the minute, that's exactly what we're doing. There's a lot of players in that team, Sean Longstaff, Miggy Almiron, Dan Burn, Kieran Trippier, on form, shouldn't be anywhere near that team. We got Tino Livramento, who's been sensational since he's come to the team. Whether he's right back or left back, he has to start. I'll give him credit for bringing in Louis Miley. Louis Miley's been brilliant, but he hooked him over Sean Longstaff at Luton, and Sean Longstaff was way worse than Lewis Miley was, and you could see how he was playing. Louis Miley again sets up Isak with a one decent bit of quality against Forest, because that's what he's capable of. Bruno's head falls off at times, he gets rattled, he makes stupid tackles. You've got to hook him quicker as well, you've got to make that change. January is a huge window for Newcastle United and for Eddie Howe, and we need to sign players of quality for the now, not for the future. I don't know who's responsible for that, whether it's Ashworth or whether it's Howe, but we'll have to sign players that can get into this squad and play now, get into this 11 and play now, and give us something that we don't have currently, because our big players that got us here last season have not turned up. They haven't evolved with the club. They've regressed. A few of them have regressed. They're off form. They're a year older. They're pushing closer to 34 than they are 30. And that's starting to catch up on them now. And I really do think that Eddie can't let his sentimentality for these players cost him his job. And it really could do that if he keeps on with this insistence of playing the same players and also the same tactics. There's no point in changing the personnel and keeping the tactics if the tactics aren't working. You have to have a plan B, whether you go 4-5-1 or whatever, whether you go 2 up front and have 2 wingers. You need to do something. And we don't do it in games. We just change the personnel, bring on different players and hope to Christ that they do the same thing. And and that's not working either. So big decisions for Eddie Howe, huge month in January, starting with Liverpool, which is going to be a real tough game to play. And then we've got the Mackems, which is a huge game, arguably the biggest game of the season so far. Then Manchester City, then Aston Villa away. It's not going to be an easy month. I back Eddie Howe to make the right calls, make the right decisions, but he has huge calls to make. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. What's the biggest call Eddie Howe has to make? Does he have to drop these tried and tested players that he's built such a great relationship with? Does he need to change his tactics? Let us know what you guys think. But January is going to be a bloody tough month. They need to act in the transfer window, and they need to do it quick. That's my thought on things. I do still trust Howe. I know he can turn it around, but he needs to make some big calls. Let us know what you guys think. Subscribe, like. We'll catch you later. Cheers. Bye.